Hello, everyone. My name is Helene, and I'm with our Global Communications team. I will be joined with Anna, Serra, and Moura, Deputy Secretary General of the International Court of Arbitration. Today we're going to be talking about a range of subjects. Just trying to invite Anna, right? Discussing the current COVID-19 outbreak, to how technology is affecting the dispute resolution landscape. Hi, Anna.
Hi, Lynn. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you. This is exciting, and this is the first time I'm doing this, so let's see how it goes.
This is the first time for all of us.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining me. We had a lot of really great questions from our community. So let's start with our first one. The current COVID-19 outbreak is affecting business globally. What steps have the court and the Center for ADR taken to keep staff safe and business continuity?
Thank you, Lynn, and really thank you for inviting me. This is exciting, and it's a great opportunity to share with you and with the 30 people that we have now connected what we have been doing. As you said, this is a global crisis, right? And we are a global arbitral institution. As you know, we have 11 case management teams, 7 based in Paris, plus our ADR team, 2 based in Asia, Hong Kong and Singapore, 1 in New York and 1 in São Paulo, Brazil. So of course, our 2 Asian teams, and we have also 2 regional directors, 1 based in Shanghai and 1 based in Singapore. They were the first ones being hit by the outbreak.
Yeah.
And that was end of January. So back in time, we were already pretty much concerned about them and trying to work with them and following the official recommendations by the government. And we implemented at that stage already that they should work remotely. They were going to the office just to perform essential tasks that we could not perform otherwise, but they have since then working from home. Recently, in March, we were also hit by the outbreak in Paris, and even more recently also, of course, in the US and in Latin America as well. And the ICC globally created a response group crisis, and Alex makes part of that group to coordinate the decisions that we had to take in order to protect our staff and to align on the internal communications of those decisions. I think that the first measure we took, and that was a global measure, was to ban non-essential travel. And we started immediately to tell people, if you do not feel well, don't come to work, stay at home, and also to impose quarantine on people coming back from what were at the time considered to be risk zones. Now we don't have that anymore. So that were the first measures. At the same time, we were with Alex and Jivo working on a contingency plan in terms of our business continuity.
And just to make sure that everyone else knows, Alex is our Secretary General.
Thank you. Yes, indeed. Alex is our Secretary General, and Jiv is our Managing Counsel. So we started to work immediately on a contingency plan in terms of business continuity while we were, of course, keeping our people safe. We went very quickly from, we had several scenarios to consider. And of course, we went very quickly from, in France at least, from the decision of closing schools on a Wednesday evening to a decision of closing business, non-essential business on a Saturday, to a decision of confined people on Monday. And my friends are texting me, so I'm trying to concentrate on the live interviews. Don't text me now. Just send your comments here. So we went from that very quickly. We had to adapt. So we have now basically all teams working from home, and we just have a very small group of 3 people, including Alex, the Secretary General, myself, and Michelle. We go to the ICC once per week to do really the essential tasks that we cannot perform electronically. And of course, we check on our people daily. We have coordination meetings, we have happy hours, we have live with all ICC staff. So we are in constant contact, and that's quite important, especially when you consider that the majority of ICC staff are not French people. We do not have our families around. We are far from home, and that's difficult for many people. So it's really important to keep in touch, to keep connected, and to have these gatherings also to help throughout these moments. And just one last comment, I think we are quite fortunate because we just had one colleague which tested positive, and we were already confined, so that was not a risk for the rest of the team, and we have been checking on her, and she's doing now well. So we were quite fortunate in that regard. And one last comment is also that the ICC has provided medical assistance remotely, which is also very, very good for staff, of course.
Yeah, we have an outlet. Our next question is, as ICC's activities have moved from our offices around the world to our homes, how is technology playing a role? You kind of already touched base on this a little bit, but changed a role in our dispute resolution. So how are we continuing our work?
Thank you. I think that's probably a question that everyone doing dispute resolution services is now discussing. I think technology has been there for quite a long time. We have discussed these topics at length in conferences, articles, and so on and so forth. But of course, that the outbreak has somehow brought the issue back because there is an immediate need for solutions. Let's start by us at the ICC. I think we are extremely lucky. Yeah. We are all equipped with probably one of the most modern tablets that allow us to have a remote post and to work from home. And it's true that an unfortunate situation in December, which was the long strike that we had in Paris, also allowed us to have some experience in terms of interacting and coordinating work with people working from home. And we have also tools. We have now Microsoft 365, which allows us almost to reproduce our working environment in a virtual way. So I think we are quite lucky, and we are able to maintain our business activity almost normally, I would say. I would also like to highlight the communication, the urgent communication that we issued in mid-March. I think it was on the 17th of March, in which I think that the big takeaway of that communication is that we encourage parties, arbitrators, and neutrals to privilege electronic communications over hard copies. And that's an important point, because we still receive many hard copies and memorials in hard copies in Paris, and right now that may be a challenge, not only because of the situation in Paris, because of the situation globally speaking. So we are encouraging parties to communicate mainly by emails. Of course, we are aware that the access to technology is not the same across the globe, and that's why we ask also parties and arbitrators to contact us in advance in case they need to send hard copies by courier. We are working internally, and it's important to mention that we have currently a caseload of 1,600 cases with parties of more than 140 countries. So that's a good sample to see what's going on out there, right, in terms of impact in the administration of cases. So we are now working with an internal group chaired by vice presidents on providing guidance on how to overcome difficulties. We are aware that we have, of course, cases will face difficulties because the situation is difficult. And what we want is that the parties and arbitrators are provided with the means and with the guidance that they need to try to overcome those difficulties. So that's on one side, and also and the most urgent need in terms of technology is tools to hold virtual meetings and hearings, so the cases are not blocked at that stage. We have had, actually, there is a case that was commented around. There was a big hearing that was actually held fully virtually, with many participants from different regions of the world, and that was a very positive experience. But what we have seen is actually that more and more being used in different cases. So let's see. I don't think we have yet enough data to say that that's a trend, but definitely it will be more considered by arbitrators and by parties as an alternative to an in-person meeting in light of the restrictions. Of course, now it's the immediate the restriction that we have, and we will not be able to travel, probably not anytime soon. So it's important to consider that alternative, and to have active case management skills to be able to overcome the difficulties.
Okay, and our last question to kind of wrap things up. You've kind of touched base on this in terms of what ICC is doing and how we're using technology. But as we move to a more digital space, do you think it's going to affect the dispute resolution community as a whole?
I think we are not an exception to the rest of the world, and we will all be impacted somehow on how we work and how we interact. So yes, I don't have the crystal ball to say exactly what we're going to see and the changes that we're going to see or implement. I would love to have it, but I don't. But I personally, I always try to remain positive, even in situations of crisis. So I think this is an opportunity. Of course, it has challenges. We understand pretty much the difficulties that businesses are going through right now. There is a major disruption in the supply chain. So we need to understand those difficulties, and we need to be able to provide solutions for their problems, for their potential disputes that will arise after this crisis. At the same time, this is a very good opportunity to probably think on how we do things and try to think differently. One of the greatest things of dispute resolution services is its flexibility, right? Is the way that we can adapt our procedures to the needs of the parties, to their problems, to their issues. And I think we will have to use probably tools that we already know, that we have been working with for a long time, but we will have to adapt them to this moment in time, to these problems that we are going to face. And I'm not going to, I will tell you, but it is obvious and obvious mechanisms and obvious things, but mediation, settlements, expedited procedure, probably, why not? You know that our rules provide for expedited procedure for amounts up to $2 million, but we had already a case in which the amount in dispute was 140 million. So maybe we need to work with this. Costs will be a concern for the parties more than ever, and any attempt to reduce costs will be very well received by users. Emergency arbitrator, the same, and we have a very good and recent experience in this regard. We were still able to nominate an emergency arbitrator within 48 hours. The arbitrator rendered its order within 15 days, and at least it helped to keep the status quo of the dispute. And both parties were extremely grateful for the possibility of being able to solve or at least to keep the status quo in such a short time. And finally, even dispute boards may be adapted to resolve the disputes that we will see arising out of this crisis. But just to conclude, I think it's to be flexible and to be very attentive to the user's needs at this stage, to try to understand their difficulties, and at the same time to try to provide solutions, because that's what an arbitral institution should do.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was really great to hear about.
No, thank you. It was good, and many thanks to the 50 people that we had attending, actually.
Well, take care, and I hope to see you soon.
See you soon, Helene. Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon. Bye.